Hello, you are watching our brand new program here on TVR World. This is World Highlights. We bring you every single week the recap of the latest news that's making headlines in the past week. I'm Rahmat Idris from Jakarta, Indonesia. We bring you the first report now with the latest developments from Middle East. This is World Highlights. Hamas handed over the bodies on Thursday, February the 20th, of Israeli infant Kfir Bibas and his 4-year-old brother Ariel, the two youngest captives taken by Hamas in their October 7, 2023 attack, and among the most potent symbols of the trauma inflicted that day. Meanwhile, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani called for joint efforts in safeguarding regional security during their meeting on Wednesday. And here's the report.
The bodies of the two boys were carried on a stage in Khan Yunis, Gaza, as well as that of their mother, Shiri Bibas, and that of a fourth hostage, Adat Lisfith, under the Gaza ceasefire agreement reached last month with the backing of the United States and the mediations of Qatar and Egypt. Red Cross staff walked to the stage where the 4 coffins were laid out, surrounded by mass Hamas militants, and signed papers as part of the handover before they were carried to their vehicles. Each of the caskets had a small picture of the hostages. Kfir Bibas was 9 months old when the Bibas families, including their father, Yarden, was abducted at the kibbutz near Oz, one of the string of communities near Gaza that were overrun by Hamas-led attackers from Gaza on October 7. Meanwhile, Red Cross vehicles drove away from the handover site in the Gaza Strip with 4 black coffins that had been placed on a stage. Each of the caskets had a small picture of the hostages. Hamas handed over the bodies of the 2 boys and their mother Shiri Bibas, along with that of a 4th hostage, Adat Lisfith, under the Gaza ceasefire agreement that reached last month, with the backing of the United States and the mediations of Qatar and Egypt. A large poster was hung up at the handover site depicting Netanyahu as a vampire standing over images of the 4 hostages. The handover marks the first return of dead bodies during the current agreement, and Israel is not expected to confirm their identities until full DNA checks have been completed. From Jerusalem, Nikki Kregor, an Israeli social worker, was holding a medallion with the words, "Bring them home now," when she said it was the saddest day of her 40 years in Israel. She added that she was worried about the remaining around 60 hostages. Critics argue that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not done enough to bring the hostages back, which he rejects. The handover marks the first return of the dead bodies during the current agreement, and Israel is not expected to confirm their identities until full DNA checks have been completed. Meanwhile, the visiting Qatari leader arrived in Tehran and met with Iranian President Pezeshkian on Wednesday. The 2 leaders discussed regional issues, especially the Palestinian issue. At a press conference held after the meeting, Pezeshkian said that countries in the region could jointly maintain regional security through mutual respect and cooperation. Speaking of the Palestinian issue, Pezeshkian hailed Qatar's mediation efforts in achieving a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and securing the release of detained Palestinians. He emphasized that the Palestinians in Gaza should be able to live safely on the land that they historically lived. Tamim said that during the meeting, the two sides discussed the current difficult situation in the region and unanimously agreed that constructive dialogue should be the best way to settle the ongoing conflicts in the region.
اكيد بعده كله خربان ومكسر هذا عم بينقط مي عم شد من جوا.
From Lebanon, Lebanese veterinarian Mustafa Shamon, who returned to his village in southern Lebanon, hopes to rebuild his house and clinic after the Israeli army withdrawal. Shamon, who has been displaced from Qiyam in late September and moved to different parts of Lebanon during the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, tried to get back to his home soon after a ceasefire agreement was reached, but found himself unable to do due to the Israeli military presence. Shamon went back to Qiyam in late January. With most buildings reduced to rubble, many residents like Shamon and his friends set up tents or found shelter in what was left of their homes. Reluctant to abandon a home they were forced to flee for long.
And more negotiations on Ukraine war is going to be on the way this week. We have the details when we return on World Highlights. Do stay with us. Welcome back to World Highlights, our premiere editions coming to you from Jakarta, Indonesia, and more reports now from the Ukraine war. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed readiness to return to negotiations on Ukraine crisis on Wednesday, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the same day reiterated Ukraine's desire to secure guarantees for its security and end the conflict with Russia this year. Meanwhile, a denunciation by Donald Trump of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator on Wednesday is not necessarily indicative of a major change in U.S. policy, an analyst told. Let's have a look.
Russian and U.S. delegations held talks on Tuesday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in the first face-to-face interactions between senior U.S. and Russian officials since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict in February 2022. Putin said he was informed about the recent Russia-U.S. talks in Riyadh, describing the results as positive and expressing readiness to return to negotiations on Ukraine. Putin said he highly valued the outcome of the high-level meeting, adding that the negotiations paved the way towards resuming cooperation in various areas of mutual interest. The talks were primarily focused on restoring relations between Moscow and Washington, Putin noted, adding that strengthening trust between the two countries is crucial for resolving pressing issues, including the Ukraine conflict. Russia and the United States are working together on key issues related to economic, space, and energy cooperation, he stated. Putin also said that he would like to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump, though some preparation was necessary beforehand. Meanwhile, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis on Wednesday, February 19, said Europe needs to wake up from the geopolitical and economic lethargy into which it has unfortunately fallen for some time. Mitsotakis made the comments after attending a meeting of mainly European leaders hosted by France on Ukraine, where he joined the discussions virtually. The second meeting, hosted by France to discuss Ukraine and European security on Wednesday, invited European countries not present earlier this week, including Greece. French President Emmanuel Macron on Monday hosted an emergency meeting with countries including Britain, Germany, and Italy, as well as the NATO alliance and EU executive. Meanwhile, following Russian-US talks held on Tuesday in Riyadh, French President Emmanuel Macron convened a second meeting on Ukraine and European security on Wednesday, bringing together France's European and non-European partners. After the meeting, European leaders reinforced their position that a just and lasting peace in Ukraine must be achieved. Macron said on the social media platform X that the position of France and its partners on Ukraine is clear and united. He emphasized that they want a lasting and solid peace in Ukraine, stand with Ukraine, and will take all their responsibilities to ensure peace and security in Europe. Macron underlined that Europe shares the same goal as US President Donald Trump to end the 3-year-long conflict in Ukraine. He stressed that Europe's efforts for peace would continue under 3 principles. Ukraine must always be involved and its rights respected. Peace must be lasting and accompanied by robust and credible guarantees, and European security concerns must be taken into account. While the rhetoric of Trump and other officials has understandably been alarming to Kiev, John Herbst of the Atlantic Council said Trump has made comments in the past that indicate he does not intend to abandon Ukraine. However, by broadening talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday between the US and Russia beyond Ukraine to US-Russian relations, Trump may have heard his setback, his goal on ending the war. Herbst said Ukraine and European governments were not invited to the talks on Tuesday, which magnified their concern that Russia and the US might cut a deal that ignores their vital security interests. Following US President Donald Trump's latest remarks on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric said the Ukrainian leader sits in office after duly held elections. When asked who started the war, Dujarric responded that Russia had invaded Ukraine. Trump denounced Ukrainian Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator without elections on Wednesday, and said that he had better move fast to secure peace or he would have no country left. Russia has seized some 20% of Ukraine and is slowly but steadily gaining more territory in the east. Meanwhile, as Ukraine nears the 3rd anniversary of the full-scale Russian invasion, people from all walks of life reflect on the impact of the war on their lives and talk about their hopes for the future. The sound of air raid sirens had become a regular part of life in Kiev and other cities across Ukraine, impacting the daily lives of residents. Darya Slavitska, a 27-year-old mother speaking at a bomb shelter at a Kiev metro station, recalls the stress and uncertainty she faced during her pregnancy. Maria Palchukovska, a neurology nurse, dreams of waking up to silence instead of sirens. She feels lucky she has not lost any family members, but the suffering of wounded she treats and the countless deaths of young people like herself have impacted her deeply. For Tetiana Lozova, a principal soloist in the National Ballet, the end of war will come when her daughter starts dreaming about toys and sweets rather than survival. The war has taken her friends, colleagues, and a chance to fully embrace her passion for dance.
Well, tariff threats continue to pour in from the U.S. under the administrations of Donald Trump. We will be right back with the details in just a few minutes. World Highlights will return. Welcome back to our premiere editions of World Highlights here on TVR World, coming to you from Jakarta, Indonesia. Threats of tariffs continue to pour in from the U.S. under Donald Trump's administration's heating up trades across the globe. We have the details in the next segment. U.S. President Donald Trump attended a gathering of global financiers and tech executives in Miami. And Trump said he will announce tariffs related to lumber, cars, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals over the next month or sooner. And these are the details.
The meeting, hosted by Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, included Tesla CEO Elon Musk, Saudi ambassador to the United States Princess Rima, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, FIFA President Gianni Infantino, and former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, among others. Trump is looking to increase investments from Saudi Arabia. In January, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman told Trump that the kingdom wants to put $600 billion into expanded investment and trade with the United States over the next 4 years, according to the Saudi state news agency. At the same time, Trump is trying to manage fallout from an announcement he made on February the 4th that the U.S. would take over war-ravaged Gaza after the enclave's Palestinians are resettled elsewhere and develop it economically. The next day, the Saudi Foreign Ministry said in a statement that Riyadh rejects any attempts to displace the Palestinians from their land. Meanwhile, Trump did not provide further details. Since returning to office on January 20th, Trump has initiated numerous tariffs and made even more frequent threats to impose levies on imported goods. They range from broad ones, a universal tariff on foreign imported goods, to ones aimed at specific sectors, regions, or countries in an effort to get others to meet his policy demands. Trump's threats have changed over time, leaving other nations and businesses unclear of what is to come next. Some economists and experts have warned Trump's sweeping tariffs will stoke inflation. While the European Union's top trade officials said on Wednesday that the bloc was interested in making mutually beneficial trade deals with U.S. President Donald Trump and was ready to discuss the potential for reducing or eliminating tariffs on motor vehicles and other goods. Maros Sefcovic, Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, told an American Enterprise Institute event in Washington that he would tell Trump administration officials that he hoped to avoid unilateral U.S. tariffs and European retaliation. Trump has said the EU and other countries have troubling trade surpluses with the United States. He has said the country's products will either be subject to tariffs or he will demand to buy more oil and gas from the U.S., even though U.S. gas export capacity is near its limits. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday said his administration is considering returning 20% of savings identified by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency initiative to Americans. Speaking at a meeting of global financiers and tech executives hosted by Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund in Miami, Trump said he is also considering using another 20% of the savings to pay down the federal government's debt. U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters on Air Force One on Wednesday that he was talking to China about TikTok as the United States seeks to broker a sale of the popular app.
Mr. President, TikTok deal, any developments there?
No, there's a lot of people interested in TikTok, and I think we have a chance of doing something good. And we'll be speaking to China about that also, because they're a party to it, obviously. But it would be great to keep TikTok alive, sell it to somebody that's going to do a great job with it.
Still in the same occasion, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Wednesday he had a great relationship with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump also said a new trade deal between the US and China is possible. Trump made the remarks to reporters on Air Force One.
I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I think a great relationship with President Xi. But remember, he loves China, and I love the USA. So, right there's a little bit of competitiveness. But the relationship I have with President Xi is, I would say, a great one.
We heard that
It was obviously hurt by COVID coming in. It hurt them, hurt us, hurt everybody, hurt the whole world. But outside of that, I have a very, very good relationship with President Xi.
Are you looking to
I
make
think
a new
he's
trade deal?
a very unique person.
Would you make a new trade deal with China? I mean,
Yeah, it's
the
possible.
one trade deal never really got
It's possible. Well, we did a great trade deal with China. We did it great for the farmers, great for manufacturers. They had to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and we were making them buy it. The problem is it might.
We're going to take a quick break now, and more reports from different parts of the globe are just around the corner when we return. Do stay with us until then. Welcome back to World Highlights here on TV Hour. Let's go across the globe now for more reports from different parts of the world. A convoy carrying South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol arrived at the country's constitutional court on Thursday for his impeachment trials, which has entered its final phase. Meanwhile, Pope Francis, battling double pneumonia in hospital, is in a stable condition and has shown slight improvement in results from recent blood tests, the Vatican said on Wednesday. Let's have a look.
The top court is reviewing Parliament's impeachment of Yoon on December the 14th and will decide whether to remove him from the office permanently or reinstate him. The court will hear witnesses testify, including Prime Minister Han Duck-soo later on Thursday. Yoon and his lawyers have argued that he never intended to fully impose martial law, but had only meant the measures as a warning to break a political deadlock. If Yoon is removed, a new presidential election must be held within 60 days. And the lawyer of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said on Thursday, February the 20th, that he had fully explained key issues in a court hearing to cancel Yoon's detention. The Seoul Central District Court held the first meeting of the impeached president's criminal trial on Thursday over insurrection charges following his short-lived imposition of martial law on December the 3rd. The court heard a bid by Yoon's lawyers to cancel his detention, as they argued that the insurrection probe had been conducted in an illegal manner and that there was no risk of Yoon trying to destroy evidence. Yoon is also facing a parallel impeachment trial conducted by the Constitutional Court, which has entered its final phase. Meanwhile, the 88-year-old pontiff is undergoing treatment at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he was admitted on February the 14th after struggling with breathing difficulties for several days. Double pneumonia is a serious infection that can inflame and scar both lungs and makes breathing more difficult. The Vatican had said previously that the Pope had a polymicrobial infection, which occurs when two or more microorganisms are involved, adding that he would stay in hospital as long as necessary to tackle a complex clinical situation. Pope Francis spent a peaceful night in a hospital and ate breakfast on Thursday, the Vatican said in its latest update on the pontiff's health. The Pope has been plagued by ill health in recent years, including regular bouts of flu. He is especially prone to lung infections because as a young adult, he developed pleurisy and had part of one lung removed.
And that is a wrap for the premiere edition of World Highlights here on TVR World. Do join us again next week at the same time. In the meantime, from Jakarta, Indonesia, I'm Rahmat Idris. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.